All right, Linda, take it away.
Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to the third session that we're putting together. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Linda Nickel, and on Instagram I'm at Cousin Linda. So I'm seeing a lot of faces from Instagram, so I'm thrilled to welcome you guys, and I appreciate you spreading the word and getting some new friends here on the screen with us. So next week, Akshaya is going to present she is a yoga therapist and she does online cooking classes. And so she's going to do her presentation on the healing power of yoga. So I'm curious to see how she's going to do this on video. So please tune in and you'll get to meet her. The following week on the 29th, I'm going to post all of these on my Instagram and my Facebook, so you'll have the agenda. But on the 29th, Valerie Hoffman is a friend of mine that is based in Pennsylvania. And she is, I consider her a landscape photographer, but she does it all. She does macro, astro, all of my photographer friends do everything. But for me, when I look at her stuff, I think of waterfalls, and Valerie has them in her backyard. So she also does workshops and speaking engagements. So she'll be here, and we were planning for her to do tips in Lightroom, and we kind of discussed it last night, and we're going to switch it out a little bit more. And what she's going to do is focus on creating images, on how you can create images with greater impact by using a few simple tips and techniques. And so she's going to run through some ideas to maybe give you a push in a different direction. On May 6th, Robert, you might know him as on Instagram, Texas. He is at Roaming Camera. So most of his feed on Instagram is cows on his ranch. They're cows. That's what he loves. That's his whole feed is that. But what you may not know is he is a travel photographer. He does commercial shoots for hotels and resorts, and he also does food photography. So he is going to share some tips and walk us through the best way to do photo shoots on those pretty platters of food that you might be sitting in front of on your vacation. So if you're a foodie, you might want to jump in on that. On the 13th, Ruth Hoyt is a lady that I met last year down in South Texas. She is a wildlife photographer. She specializes in guiding and workshops. When I think of Ruth, I think of her as a bird photographer, and that's not a fair assessment, but her birds are fantastic. So if you have any interest in feathers, check out her page. And what she's going to do is walk us through a kind of virtual tour and a plan for you to show. She's going to show you how to set up an outdoor photography studio in your backyard. And since we're spending a lot of time at home, this will be handy. So tonight's presentation is by my friend Erin Randall, and her, as you know, the topic is powerful questions for creatives. And I think that if you're a photographer, a painter, a musician, you're creative. So her talk isn't just aimed at photographers, it's aimed at everybody here, because I know most of you through photography, but you probably do something else that is creative, and I think she's going to make you think about what you're doing and how you're communicating that to your audience. So I'm going to let her start. Another thing is she's got you on mute. You know about the questions. The link that you signed up tonight on the Zoom link, that will apply to the rest of the session. So you don't need to email me or message me for the link. So you've got it. I will ask that we were having some issues, or we know of issues that Zoom is having with hackers, that you do not post that link on your social media anywhere. You can email it to your friends and give them the passwords in case they need it, but please don't post it in a public space. So if you know anybody that would like to join, this is for everybody. So if it's a topic you're not interested in, just clock out or come in and hang out with us. Okay, Erin, go.
Okay, so my name is Erin, and here in Austin, I'm primarily known as an agile coach, meaning I do a lot of work with organizations, with teams, with executives, with coaching individual people. But last year, I also made the switch over to doing coactive coaching work, which is where I work primarily with individuals. But as part of that work, I'm also very passionate about teaching. And one of my favorite things to teach is powerful questions, because I've seen the impact it has on changing relationships. This stuff doesn't just work at work, it also works at home. So in working with Linda and the group here, I thought, you guys might be interested in powerful questions, but we need to tweak this so that it made sense for the work that you're trying to do here. So my goal here tonight is twofold. Number one, that I want you to understand what powerful questions are and why they are so important. And then secondly, how can we learn to use powerful questions in your own photography and creative endeavors? So as we get going, some questions about questions. First off, who can tell me, and not Jessica, what powerful questions are? And this is for anybody. You can come off mute for this portion.
I used to work for the Walt Disney Company in advertising, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. But one of the things when we created the ads for the Walt Disney Company was how do we tell a story? And if we're doing a single image ad, what can we put into that single image that tells a story?
Right.
And it was always trying to create what we used to say, we'd create the Disney magic, but also trying to create something that would exceed a guest experience.
Okay.
So it was the seed of all of those things was we had I was in the Walt Disney Company in marketing, and in marketing I was in advertising, and in advertising I was in charge of all of the photography. But in the marketing division, they used to hold a monthly what they called creative cafe meeting. So anybody in marketing, and there were 700 people in marketing, could go to that meeting, and they would say, well, next year is going to be Mickey's 65th birthday. What are we going to do? And then they'd go around the room and they would literally just point at you, and you had to spew out the first thing that came off of your head. And they would record that and go to the next person, and those meetings would have 30 to 40, 50 people sometimes, and all of those things would be recorded, and then they'd kind of get culled down, and one of those things would become an ad or a ride or a parade.
Okay. David, come back to me. What are powerful questions?
Well, the questions were trying to make you think through.
Okay.
So what are you going to convey, and how do you convey it?
It seems like, what's your end goal? What is the goal of?
So they're asking big, they're open-ended questions is what I hear you saying. I'm seeing a lot of what, I'm seeing a lot of how. Okay, what else can you tell me about powerful questions?
Well, the powerful questions always make you pause and think, and send you off in another direction that you hadn't thought of, and these days, the world has dramatically changed. And when we all kind of get back into it, how do we rethink just about everything?
Good.
I was thinking about,
And I'm going to interrupt real quick because I'm seeing messages come across that they haven't unmuted themselves. But other things that I'm seeing is, like Jama agrees with David, it's like questions that make you think. Sherry Hunt is saying questions that make you feel.
Great. Both are great answers because they're things that are really going to rock you back and give you a different perspective. They're designed to get in there, open things up, and make you think about things in a new way. Powerful questions are open-ended questions. They're not answered by yes or by no, okay? You guys gave great examples. Used what, they used how, okay? If you have a question that says, is it this or is it this? That's an example of a closed question because it can be answered by yes or by no, okay? So what are weak or not so powerful questions?
Let me go back just 1 second. Another thing that Karen Riley is saying is questions that make you understand another person deeply or bond with another person.
Yes, that is a great example of it, Karen. Thank you. Okay, so what are weak or not so powerful questions? Anyone again?
Okay, so Susan Upton, this is great. Susan Upton says yes or no questions.
Yep. Okay.
And Jama says, how's the weather?
Exactly. James has given a really good example of it. How's the weather? Why is that a weak question?
Well, I think it goes back to the first question. It doesn't cause the person to do critical thinking.
Right. And Akshaya agrees. She says it's an obvious answer.
It's an obvious answer. It's kind of a throwaway. It's not designed to get in there to help you really know another person. Oh, it's just a question for the sake of a question.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. How do we use questions? How do we use questions?
Well, you try to engage the other person.
Ideally, yes. That's what you want, that engagement, that connection.
And Jessica Bear is saying as doorways.
Ooh. What do you mean by doorway, Jess?
So just to elaborate, a question is like almost an invitation to walk through into a new state of kind of thinking about something or a new paradigm, if done correctly. The transformational questions I think that you're talking about are kind of like inviting someone in through a portal into a new kind of leveling up or experience.
Yeah.
Way of thinking.
Like a deeper level of connection between people or a relationship.
And Jama's saying, we use questions to gain knowledge, gain opinions, learn something you may not have thought of. Akshaya says to get to know someone.
All really great examples. And the more you get to know someone, do you find that you ask better and deeper questions? Not what questions about, how's the weather? How are you today?
There's more depth in it.
Yeah. What kind of questions do we ask one another? Is that a stumper?
I could go anywhere, Erin. Be careful.
I know.
Oh, so Jama's question to everyone is, how do you know Linda?
That's an example of, great, that's a nice big open-ended question, and it can generate a lot of content, a lot of topic. Okay.
Jessica says comfortable questions. And then Karen Riley says, depends on how well you know them.
Or how well you want to know them. How do you feel when someone asks you a good question?
Stumped.
Yep. What else?
So Nancy Hernandez says engaged. Akshaya says seen.
Oh, nice one.
Susan Upton says, I prefer to be engaged.
Mhm.
And then Ruth Hoyt says, sometimes uncomfortable.
Yeah. Ruth, can you come off mute and tell us what you mean a little bit more about uncomfortable?
Well, I'm sort of an introvert. Actually, I am an introvert, but you wouldn't know it when you see me on stage or teaching because I've been doing it for 30 years, so I have a lot of practice at it. But when somebody asks you a good question that requires more than a yes or no or the weather's great, you have to share a little bit about yourself. And I tell my students that every time you press the shutter in your camera, you're sharing yourself because you're showing the world how you saw it at that moment. And it's the same thing, but
Mhm.
you're on stage instead of your photo.
Right. So it sounds like you're also talking about vulnerability, Ruth.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I've had two, which I think is Rebecca Moran. I can't remember, but she says validated. And I like that answer. Jama says making yourself know and vulnerable is a difficult known.
It is. It's extraordinarily difficult. Okay. But this is why questions, as they build that bridge to them, can really help us to know one another and to help walk through some of those doorways and be like, okay, let me stop here and take a breath and then maybe continue on. What question do you wish that people had the courage to ask you? Hmm.
Jessica says, why don't you like that?
Oh, that's a big one. That's a really big one. Why don't you like that? Yeah. Because that's really going to get down into the specifics of something and make you think about, well, why do I like something and why do I not? What else? What else do we wish that people had the courage to ask us?
David Valdez asks, what does it cost?
Well done from a man who's probably sold a lot of prints. Yeah. What else? All right, then what question are you tired of hearing?
This is David Valdez. What camera do you use? And then so Ruth Hoyt says, what camera gear do you use? And her answer is, it doesn't matter. But what camera? Yeah, as photographers, and I don't consider myself a pro by no means, but I get asked a lot. So I can't imagine how many times Ruth has been asked, or John Fisher. Oh, John, that's not right, because I ask him a lot. John Fisher, as a photographer, is, what settings did you use? I don't like that question, John. That doesn't apply to me. Akshaya says, is there a short version of your name? Ruth Hoyt says, oh my gosh, how much does your camera gear cost? John Fisher is laughing out loud. And then Patty Roberts, Patty, how do you pronounce your name? Oh, Iznaga, I think. I'm going to get it wrong. Sorry. How do you pronounce your name? Hers is it's a little, lots of letters that are hard to pronounce. Nancy, say it again? Iznaga. Nancy Hernandez is, the problem is people don't ask questions much. Everyone is talking and opining. And then Sue, are you a real photographer? I can't believe you get that.
That's just rude.
David Valdez says, can you do it for exposure? So these are a lot of camera questions. And then Susan Upton, did you use a filter on this? That's another good question. Ruth is, have you been published by National Geographic? The answer is yes. Michael Rung, oh my God. Michael Rung, welcome to our little party. Michael Rung is a Fort Worth photographer that I met recently, like last year. He's a landscaper. The question he gets is that rock slippery? Hattie is getting a question, can you do it for free? David Valdez, have you published a book?
Sounds like you guys have a lot of questions that you're tired of hearing, but notice very few of them go to any depth. They're all very surface level questions. So there, I mean, people are asking, but you're right, there's a lot of noise. There's not a lot of listening on the other side. Okay, so let's go on. I want to show you guys the powerful question pyramid. We're going to go here really quickly before we go to the meat of the presentation. So this is just a quick image to help you understand about more powerful and less powerful questions. Down at the base of the pyramid, you're going to have those less powerful questions, the yes, no questions. So if anybody has small children, you might give them do you want to wear the red sweatshirt this morning or do you want to wear the blue sweatshirt? Okay, that's a closed question. You're giving them two options there, because if you give them too many, you're never going to get dressed and get out the door. Although Lord knows we can't leave the house anyway, so honestly, let the kids wear what they want. However, in normal times, you're going to stay more on closed questions down there. Okay, then you're going to start moving up the pyramid a little bit, the who, the when, the where. Who did this? When are we going to have this done by? Where are we going? Okay, but once we start to get into how and to what questions, then we're starting to get into questions that are really powerful. Okay, how are we going to make this happen? What do you wish that people asked me? How are we going to get that particular shot? What is the message you were trying to convey? Okay, and at the top we get to why, which is, of the questions that's at the top there, but you do want to be mindful of using why, because it can cause people to be defensive. Why did that happen? Why did you let that happen? Okay, so you also want to be careful of tone and the like. So, any questions about this pyramid before we actually go over to some photographs and the like? All right, Linda. So everybody, I asked Linda to give me 2 photographs here, okay? And we're going to use questions in this conversation here between Linda and myself to go deeper into these images, all right? So the first thing I would like her to do in about 30 seconds, if she could explain to me what is happening in this photograph and where she took it.
Okay, so this was taken in Vietnam, and I had gone on a tour along the Mekong Delta. And one of the stops that our tour guide made was at this little shack of a place. And this woman and her daughter all day long sit there and weave grass mats that you'd find at Pier 1, and you'd pay $60, $70 for them. She gets about $8 or $9 to do this. It takes her about 4.5 hours, 5 hours to do I guess an 8 by 6, I think that was the length. It's just a grass mat. But so I kind of took it because what she gets out of it and what we pay, there's such a big discrepancy. And I found it very interesting and delightful to sit and visit with her for a few minutes. So
okay,
that's what I'll offer.
Okay. So what is the story that you wanted this image to tell?
I wanted to show that, I live in a lovely house and I have rugs everywhere, and I don't think twice about where they come from. Mm-hmm. And this was an opportunity for me to see somebody sitting in a very hot and sweaty and humid workspace. And the smile on her face was on her face the entire time we were there. And granted, we're making a tourist stop and she knows that she's on display, but she had a real lightness about her. She was happy that we came. She was grateful, and she just never stopped working. So
it sounds like you wanted us as viewers to connect to the joy that this woman had in what she was doing.
That and the pride in the work that she was doing. She doesn't know where her grass mats are going to end up, but she makes them anyway. And that's her job. That's how she has supported her family for, 40 years. So
what did you learn about the people in this photo by capturing this image?
For me, some of you may know, but I'm Vietnamese, half Vietnamese. I was born in Vietnam. My father was an American that married my mom there and left when his tour was over, and somehow managed to convince somebody to come back and get us. And I see that my life could have been different had my dad not come back. And I could have been a grass mat maker or worse. So
it sounds like you could see a bit of yourself in
oh,
them.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. How do you see the women in this photograph now? What is different about how you see them now?
It's an appreciation. Everything that we see with a little tag that says from China or from Vietnam or whatever, somebody is having to do the manual labor that, you know, we get to hang on our walls or use. For me, it's, you know, there's a lot of made in China, we don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
We buy it anyway and we need it. And what we do is we support their livelihood. We may not agree with their politics or their quality, but it's important.
So it sounds like you want us to connect with the women in this photograph too.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
So when you took this image, what were you thinking about? Were you thinking, what were you thinking about?
Documenting for me is showing, so no one has seen this photo. I sent Erin a handful of photos that no one has seen. And this is one that just sits on my hard drive. But when I say no one has seen on a social media platform. I've showed this to my nieces, and the point is to show them, you know, your life was different because you had a decent grandfather that, you know, got grandma here. But this is where you come from. And it's an appreciation of heritage in a way.
Wow. You used the word documenting a little bit ago.
Mm-hmm.
What are you trying to document?
I'm not sure. I think maybe just how something is made. I've always had a fascination of factories. I love going to see how machinery works, how things are created. And, you know, maybe a grass mat maker is not an artisan, but she is an artist. She's creating something with her hands. And she sits on that floor for 7 hours, I think is what she said, a day. And she makes almost 2 of those mats. It's hard work just sitting on your butt and moving those boards. I'm not really sure the poles.
My back starts to, scream at me just thinking about it.
Yeah.
What technical skill did you use to capture this image?
I would say none. I actually just snapped the shutter. This was what I would say is a candid shot. For me, I was being a traveler, and I wasn't being a travel photographer. I was just trying to take the shot. I didn't have a lot of time. You don't get a lot of good light in these because I'm in midday, and it was dark and shadowy inside. For me, it's get the shot. And we didn't have a lot of time with her. So you get what you get. And so for me, it's just, it's not something I would post, but it's a story. And for me, that is important.
Sounds like what you're saying is you wanted to share her story too.
Maybe a little bit. And that's hard to do if you don't put it on social media. And but I feel like I've been able to share a little bit with my nieces who, they have no desire to go to Vietnam. That's not Disney World. That's not that doesn't hit their radar. But maybe in 20 years, when they are interested in their family history,
They
might make me curious.
So if you had a mulligan or a do-over, what would you do differently with this photo?
If I had a do-over, I'd probably have used a faster shutter speed because her daughter is very blurry. You can see her right hand it shows a little bit of motion, but that's luck and me calling it motion, but it's blur. I could do it all over again. I wish she had better light on her, but you get what you get.
Is there anything else you want us to know about this photo?
No.
Okay. All right. So I've got a few things about photojournalism that let's come back to. All right. So were there any questions that were coming in off the side? I saw the chat line blinking a bit.
No, I think they're just saying nice things about me.
Okay. Well, that's even better. All right. Well, let's go to round 2 here.
Thank you, Patty, and thank you, Ruth.
Okay.
But it was a snap.
Okay. So Linda, tell me the story of this photo.
Okay. So the people that travel with me, you need to know, I cannot read a map. I cannot read a map. I can, but I really don't know where I am a lot of times. That's not my job. If I ask you to travel with me, it's because I expect you to read the map. So I'm in Acadia National Park, and my friends had been there a couple of days before I got there. And so they had shot a lot of places that I didn't get to do. And as we were going through their photos one night, I'm like, I want to go there, I want to go there. So this is a place that I'm walking with my map, and I'm really lost. I'm so lost that it's starting to rain, and I'm getting a little nervous because I do not have cell service at this point. And I got some of the best photos on that 2.5-hour trail of not knowing where I was. And this is one of the photos that I took. I was near a stream-ish creek, maybe. It wasn't a lake, but it was a stream. So the water was very still, and I love reflection shots. And what I really got excited about in Acadia is the colors. We just don't get those kinds of colors in our autumn. And I was finding pink leaves and chartreuse colored leaves, and I don't know, I saw that, and I took the opportunity to snap it. So it's something that I use as one of my screensavers. Again, it's not a shot that I've ever posted, but it reminds me of, you're lost, and it's okay to be lost, but you really need to learn to read a map.
Thank you. I love what you're saying about that. You know, I'm lost, and it's okay to be lost. And I love, normally I would ask you a question, but why did you choose to take this photo?
Those leaves.
Just the leaves. It was the colors. Okay.
It was colors. It reminded me of confetti, floating confetti on the surface of the water.
Okay. And what have you, and of what are you most proud in this photo?
That I was able to figure out that I was on the wrong trail. It goes back to, well, I'll say this. Only in the last 4 or 5 years have I been comfortable being alone. I'm always surrounded with people. I usually travel with people. And in the last 4 or 5 years, I've just said, I'm going to go by myself. If no one wants to go, I'm going by myself. And a lot of times I choose to go by myself. And I was on this trail. I knew that the weather was not ideal to be on that trail, but I thought, I can figure this out. I'll go, and my friends will come find me if they need to. Truth be told, they would never found me because I was on the wrong trail. That they sent me to one trail, and I don't know, I turned right when I should have turned left, and I was on a trail that I didn't see people for a little over 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, you know, in my untrained eye, this looks like a much more technical shot than the previous one did. So what skill did you learn or practice in taking this shot besides map reading?
Okay, so this picture, in my backpack, because I knew I wasn't going to be gone that long. I didn't want to carry a lot, and I knew I was going to be probably walking about 1.5 miles. So I didn't carry a lot. I had my walk around lens, which I usually take on just, it's easy. It works. It has, you have opportunities to do a lot with the lens. But in my bag, I had tucked in a specialty lens that was, it's a lens baby. And a lot of people will know that is, but it was a specialty lens that allows you to blur the edges of a photo. And I had just, well, I shouldn't say just purchased it, but it was a new lens, and I hadn't really experimented with it. And I'd taken several shots, just clean, perfect reflections. And then I thought, I'm going to trade out the lens and try the lens baby. And I just love that blur. It to me is like there's peace in that water. The reflection was clean. And because I could control what I did with the bokeh, I got to play. And I wanted it to be a little bit more artistic.
Okay. How have you been using this image to connect with other people, as well as how do you use it connect more with nature?
I'm sorry, I was distracted. I just saw a message from John saying that he's going to take up a collection to get Linda a Garmin in reach. Thanks, John. Sorry.
No worries. How can you use this image to connect with other people?
I don't know that I can. Well, that's not true. That is not true. I have a lot of girlfriends, and with having a lot of friends, there's always some drama in somebody's life. And I don't mean bad drama. I just mean sometimes they're having a bad day, and sometimes they just need somebody to know that they're having a bad day. And I have a collection of images kind of like this that I use to send to them as their screensaver. Sometimes I send a note or a quote that I think might help them. Just think outside of them.
Yeah. So it sounds like you found a way to help, connect with other people through these images. Wow. Why does this particular image resonate with you?
It comes to for me, it's about the color. Most of you know that I'm from South Texas, where everything is brown or green for 3 weeks, and then everything returns to a different state of tan and brown and beige. And travel. Autumn is one of my favorite times of year to travel because many, many years ago, someone invited me to go to Vermont, and I had never seen red leaves in my entire life. And over the years, I've had opportunities to travel in the autumn, and I pick places that have these colorful leaves. And this just represented to me the confetti of color.
I love that color aspect. You've brought it up before at the very beginning of this conversation. I love how it resonates through. So I'm going to ask the same question again that I did before. If you were to take this photo again, if you had a mulligan or a do-over, what would you do differently?
I think what I would have done, and I'm only seeing a portion of the photo because I've got heads in the way, but I would have gotten more of the base of the tree. The lens that I was using only allowed me to have a certain focal distance, and I wished I could have backed up, but I really couldn't back up because I was really on the edge of a trail that was rocky. That's what I would have done more, I think.
Okay. So you're using questions and what you see to critique your own work now, is what it sounds like.
Only because you're making me do it.
Okay, fair enough. So, let's kind of look back then at both photos together. So there was the photojournalism aspect of this one, the landscape, aspect of this one. The word witness comes up for me when I think about photojournalism, document, capture.
Mhm.
And that's really witnessing a certain moment in time. Whereas I think about landscape, it's seeing something through your eyes, or that connection that you want with a particular image or a place. How do these statements resonate with you? What comes up when you hear this?
Photojournalism is not my favorite type of photography.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say very rarely do it, but I don't do it very often. And so it's very uncomfortable to me to take photos of people.
Okay.
I'm happy with, seriously, I can take hundreds of pictures of a leaf or a flower. But when it comes to people, it doesn't, as much as I like being around people and talking to people, photographing strangers is absolutely uncomfortable. There's no other word that I feel like I'm invading their space, and I don't feel like I have the right to do that. But in a lot of different countries that I travel a bit, so in a lot of different countries, a lot of them welcome it. They like having the photo taken, and I'm very thrilled to get that generosity. But even if I've got a good picture, I just feel squeamish to share it.
But there's an aspect of, being seen. And I think it was Akshay who said this, or it was James who said, you're seen, and call me by my name. That aspect. You're one of the few people I know that you really, when you travel, you work hard to connect with other people. And I think the images and the questions really help you to do that. Oh.
Maybe. Or maybe I know that there's an opportunity to, they might have a Swiss chalet that I can use.
Always the ulterior motive back there with it. Okay, so you guys, I'm going to go to the question portion of this, meaning you guys can go ahead and ask me questions about what you saw happen there. So you saw me really talk to Linda about the images themselves. But I really want to know things about, what's different for you now about questions. How will you use them differently? How can you use questions with your creative work going forward? So I'm going to
unmute some of them.
Yeah. And I'm going to go to a different, I'm going to go to this view.
I noticed everybody is gone. Did they turn their video off, or did you turn their video off?
They all turned their video off at the very, okay. Erin Kibbe. Oops. Okay, so let's extrapolate that. Taking photos of people, the connection. You thought it would be a cool photo, but we're uncomfortable with it the whole time. What would it have been like to go to the person and ask if you could take a photo?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking the group as a whole,
Okay,
or Erin Kibbe.
Do you mind if I say something about that?
No, please.
Jump in.
Hey, Robert.
In my experience, every time that I've had a cool picture, like protest, I love protests. Protests are always a great, haven for great photojournalism. Every time I have a picture, and this was back in the days of film that I used to do this. The Austin American Statesman used to run my films, and and they would always ask me, "Hey, did you get this person's name?" So
right.
If you take a picture of the person, it forces you to go up to that person and go, "Hey, that is a really cool picture. I can't show you. It's film. It's not like I can spin the camera around and say, hey, check this out. I shot this of you, and can I, we would like to use it. This is all on film. You don't know what I have of you. So, but I have to get their name and their information, because if I go back to the editor, that's the first thing they're going to, hey, did you get this person's name?
Wow.
So, I would, go, yeah, and the first couple times it was like, no. But then when I learned my lesson, it was, yeah, I got here you go. Here's all their information. By the way, here's the other people in the background too.
So Akshaya had a really great comment about using questions in a writing to connect with their audience. So the vast majority of you here are photographers. How many of you think from the beginning, how can you connect with your audience through these photos? What are you trying to help them see that wasn't there before?
Well, photojournalism has always been about telling a story.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have a person that's in the photo, I mean, the story starts to revolve around them, especially in a protest. Why are you here? What is your message you're trying to get across? Why are you upset? If you're protesting, obviously you're upset at something, or something.
Look, you're already modeling powerful questions. Just in there. Why are you here? What are you upset about? What makes you angry? What causes you to actually get off your couch and come out here and do this? Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But photojournalism is, that's where I got my start. I picked up a camera, and photojournalism was easy because you just show up with a camera and try to take the best, picture that tells the story. And I learned a lot of stuff, right off the bat. Pictures of people that have clever signs. That's people are always going to have clever signs.
Right.
How you use the context of somebody, with maybe you using a telephoto lens and compressing it, showing that, hey, this is 150 people with all that have clever signs all in one shot. Something to that nature, or something that you can convey. The story a little bit different with photography, not just shooting just one sign that was clever. Maybe there's
So what questions can you ask to convey the story? Yeah. Looks like you're thinking about that one, Robert.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that one, because beyond the obvious, why are you here? Why are you mad, or why are you upset? What do you want to change about the current politics, of the society thing that you're protesting? Beyond that, you do get some crazy answers. I'm paid to be here.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. All right, I want to come to Erin Kibbe. Has a really good some questions here. Do you take the photo before asking, or do you ask afterwards? I'm wondering about ruining the moment and actually getting the right feel for the moment. So Erin, do you want to extrapolate on that for a bit?
Well, I guess it's just more kind of what you guys are talking about. How do you in essence capture sort of, the right thing without it being, staged, or, for example, even the picture Linda took, I mean, walking in there is obviously potential for changing sort of what people are doing. And I know, people may like having their picture taken, but I'm not looking for like that, look at me, take, smile sort of a feel. I want like just natural. And like with the guy that was fly fishing, he was actually catching a fish as I'm, 50 feet away from him and kind of walking in the situation. I want to interrupt him in his peaceful moment. I'm the only other person that sees him. So how do you still capture that? Like, is it okay to just start snapping away? And I can see that he sort of notices me, but I don't want to take away that. And I still want to capture that essence, but it's just a very uncomfortable thing for me because I'm more of landscape bird.
Yeah.
So I think that's a question for the group. And because to me, you're getting into the ethics of something in there. And I think you all, honestly, you guys, I never take photos. I borrow Linda's. So, right.
Erin, I guess what I have done is if I saw the guy fly fishing, I will take that photo. And if I think it's a really cool photo, I'll go up to him and say, I just took this photo. If you'd like it, if you'll give me your email, I'd like to share it with you. Because, and a lot of times people say, no, thank you. But a lot of people have said yes. And a lot of those people I still keep up with. But I think that when people see photos of them doing something they love, they don't have that many of them doing that. And that kind of, I think of it as, if they say yes, someday some grandkid or son is going to find that photo. I don't know. That's why I will go up and ask. Now, when I'm traveling in a foreign country where I don't speak the language and I don't think they have an email address, you know, I will take the photo because I don't know that it's ethical, but for me, it's a story.
Mm.
And if I can, I don't know, if I can encourage
Let's
someone
take
to,
your story.
I'll do anything for a story. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think, Robert?
Oh, I'm bad. Oh man, 99.9. I'm taking the photo and then talking to him afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, and digital's kind of changed that game because you have the instant results.
Sure.
You know, so
Yeah.
you can you know, even if they're kind of like, I really don't want my picture taken. No. And then you show them, you're like, hey, check this out, and you're oh.
Yeah.
It clicks. You know, with them that, you know, they're like, oh yeah, you know, I mean, I've had some where I've had, you know, people that are like, they'll even tell me beforehand, I'm going to go do this thing and don't take my picture. Oh, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
You know, hey, thanks for the heads up beforehand. It's very rare though, but most of the time, I think one of my best stories was, it was in Peru. So I was traveling and had a little boy. Something was definitely up with his speech. You know, my Spanish is kind of, it needs a little bit of help. Más trabajo para español. But you can tell by the way he seemed autistic. You know, he was more shouting and everything. And I realized when I saw his mom flash some sign, and I was like, he's deaf. So is mom. And boy, I tell you what, I gave him my cell phone, and it took me about a half hour to get it back. He went through every picture I had on my cell phone. He was so visually in tune and everything. Well, man, I just started snapping pictures of him looking at his phone, like he was just going to town on my phone, and I just started snapping pictures of him and his mom and everything. And then I brought my assistant over, and I was like, you're not gonna believe this. Both him and his mom are both deaf. Well, my assistant's deaf too, and has taught me sign language. But they sign, it's totally different. It's all in Spanish sign language, not American sign language. So our languages don't jive, but we got the body language thing down. And Mitch, my buddy, was like, you know, told his mom, is like, hey, I'm deaf too, and small world, you know, that we're all, we're all deaf. Well, I took, I don't know, probably about 100 pictures, 100 portraits of them. But probably the best one was the little boy looking at the phone, just going to town, looking at the phone with all of his friends and his buddies and everything. And it was kind of a powerful moment, you know, bonding with somebody through photos.
I love what I hear you saying, that you're in the moment with people. And this is a question for the group as a whole as well. Do you all have questions that you formulate ahead of time about the work that you want to do?
John Fisher.
Somehow she knew I was aiming for.
I think Michael Rung is sitting here too. I'm
Yeah,
going to look
you
right
know,
through here.
I always think about, you know, what's going to happen before I leave and go out. You know, what am I going to shoot? What I want to come back with, and engage people. But you know, whatever it is I'm photographing, you know, from stuff I did at the White House to anywhere around the world that I've been. You know, you always have to think, you know, why am I here? What do I want to accomplish? And then go out and try and do it. And you know, there's a lot of luck in photography, but you also have to make your luck. So, and in making your luck, you have to be like mentally prepared. You know, it doesn't matter what kind of camera you have, but you got to know your equipment so that when it's quick, you can't be fiddling with your camera gear. That needs to be something that you don't even think about, so that you can capture that moment. Because if you have your camera down and you see something 1,000 times, It's
Yeah.
you're never going to capture it
Yeah.
because in that second that you bring your camera up, that thing is gone and it's gone forever.
Mhm.
He's talking about my birds.
Yeah, I think that the big
Fisher?
difference between portrait photography and landscape and some nature stuff is, the making of the moment is both more fleeting and slower in nature photography than I think it is in portrait photography. We think that, landscape photography, it's such a long moment that you can capture it in, but also that light and that moment is fleeting in different kinds of contexts of time.
Mm-hmm.
What I learned a long time ago in the film day, you have to anticipate the shot.
Mhm.
People are constantly moving and changing. You just had to learn to anticipate it. And, in the film day, you didn't have the liberty of looking at the back of your camera.
So I hear the question there is, what do I need to see that isn't there yet, or what might be coming?
What might be coming. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, what might be coming. Thank you, Jama. That was a perfect example of that. Yeah.
Michael, do you have an opinion? Michael Wrong.
I think he spaced out a little bit.
Okay.
All right, you guys. I also know that we're at 8:30, which I know was like the bewitching hour there.
Yeah. All right. Wrap yourself up.
Okay, but Michael Rung is saying, hold on. Now I'm
Okay.
seeing over in the chat line.
Oh, okay.
He has something to say.
The reason I'm picking on Michael Rung and John Fisher is they're landscape photographers, and I have traveled with them, and I see how they work. And my camera was next to theirs, and I didn't come back with the work that they came back, the images they came back with, and it's a lot of planning and anticipation, and I know experience, but
It's seeing past what you think you want to see and seeing what's really there.
mhm.
I think the anticipation of going on trips is you look online, you do all this research, and you think you know what you want to get out of that trip. But being in there in that moment, sometimes the light's completely different, or maybe it's just a little bit different. And you have to realize to find the shots that are there and to inspire people with the moment that you're in and not with the moment you think you wanted to inspire with.
So John, if you were to make that a question then, or two questions I heard in there, what would you change it to be the question?
How did you, let's see here. Oh, that's a good question. Good question.
So this is Michael. I can take a stab at that.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I was curled up on the sofa with the dog. So,
And enough about your personal life.
yeah, enough about my personal life. No, I had a trip to Yosemite back in February, and one of the things I've been kind of focused on is not going into trips with too much of an expectation of what I really want to get, as opposed to if I come across this type of scenario with lighting or weather or location or an intimate scene, how will I react to that, and how would I shoot it? So kind of pre-visualizing from more of a generic standpoint, as opposed to going in and saying, I want a shot of Half Dome at sunrise with clouds and da-da-da-da. You're not necessarily going to get that. And then kind of piggybacking on a prior conversation, I think it was around portrait photography, is the same thing as being able to anticipate what is the light going to do as the sun is shifting through the sky, whether it's, as it's dipping towards the horizon or rising. I had a moment in one of the valleys in Yosemite
Michael,
where.
can I interrupt you for just half a second?
Sure.
A lot of people don't know who you are. Can you turn your video on unless you're inappropriately dressed?
You're not wearing pants, Michael. Leave the video off.
Yeah.
I'm appropriate.
He's just with his dog, y'all.
No, now I'm standing in my office awkwardly. Hold on.
Just so, because I know you through, but a lot of people. There you
There
go.
it is.
There you go.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you.
No problem. So anyways, just
No, turn
knowing
it
what
back
the.
on. Hello.
You lost
Oh,
me.
you're so fussy. I forgot what it was like to hang out with you. Anyways, just being able to understand what the light's going to do as the hour advances, so to speak. And I had a moment in Yosemite where I turned around from the shot I was taking, and there was this awesome light just kind of kissing the top of some trees on a ridge line, and I knew it wasn't going to last very long. It was literally 30 seconds, and I wasn't able to capture it because it happened so quickly. So just because you're in nature, and it can be relaxing, and and kind of enjoy the calm and the peace. But there's a lot of chaos involved with it too, because the elements do change so much. And whether it's at sunset or in the middle of the day, if you're shooting weather or whatever, things just change so rapidly. You have to be able to anticipate and be ready for it.
Yeah, I was standing on the beach at sunset in Hawaii, and everybody's facing the sunset. And I turned around and looked behind me, and there's a beautiful rainbow behind me. So I turn around, I'm start shooting the rainbows in the palm trees, and everybody on the beach starts watching me and what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden, everybody turned around to watch the rainbow. It was a full rainbow across the sky.
Some of the best advice I've gotten from just travel photography or landscape photography is always look behind you. You never know what's going on behind you.
Yep.
So what should I see that's behind me? Or what am I not seeing that I should, where should I look next?
Yeah. Head's always on a swivel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, I'm going to pull this back because we are actually 8 minutes over. And frankly, I have a bewitching hour as much as anything. So I'm going to narrow this down. Any questions about what we talked about here tonight that I can answer for anybody? And I'll leave this up just in case anybody needs to find me.
I'm going to, I don't know what you put up. Okay, FYI, Erin is I get this wrong all the time, an agile coach, an agile.
It's okay, Linda, don't worry. Erin just coaches stuff, don't worry.
She coaches people. So she has through her website, she is offering an hour consultation, a free consultation. If you know you want to do something, just don't know where to start, hit her up, whether it's photography.
Don't hit me though, just don't hit me.
Well, but no, seriously, take advantage of it.
Yes. You can actually, just by talking with me, everybody, you're going to get a lot more questions like this, but it's really going to help you think about what you're doing and why, and what you want on the other side, and how you want to move forward. I spend a lot of time right now, especially, helping people imagine what they might want their future to look like, and how do we want to get there, and how do we want to be ready for it. So that's all I got.
Take advantage of it.
Okay.
Thank you, Erin.
Thank you so
No
much.
worries. Okay. Anything else? I'm seeing a chat. All right. There's nothing else. I will turn off the recording function.
Okay.
And we can have a chat if anybody wants.
I'm out of words. I'm drained.
Guys, it sounds like then let's go to bed.
I've been
I know Robert's got to get back to his dog, or Michael's got to get back to his dog. So
I think Mike's already on mute and off over to the dog again.
I know that's why it's fair game right now. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you.
See you all later.
All right. Good night, all. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank y'all very much. Hopefully I'll see you next week. Bye. Hopefully I'll see you next week.
Sure.
Oh, don't forget, Akshaya's presentation is next Wednesday, same time, same place. So it's the power of yoga. So you know what? I could probably use some right now. Hi, Alexa.